I'll go first. I'll be quick. I think our race and our culture influences how we may see certain areas or situations as safe and not or unsafe. You know, where can this be celebrated? Where can our manhood not be celebrated? And I say that, for example, being a Black man, a barbershop can often be a safe haven for many folks. Where I think of my barber and other barbers, where that may be the only person that some folks may be able to express their true selves. Or I see people in barbershops just hanging around, probably got their hair cut early in the morning and there to the afternoon because they feel comfort there. And that's just something that I've seen mostly in the Black community. So I think based on our race and our culture, it may influence how we may or may not feel comfortable expressing and celebrating our manhood.
I guess I'll share next. I appreciate what Brother Curry is sharing in regards to comfort and safety, and there's the negotiation and the tension points of that with various notions of masculinity. And the barbershop has always been a safe place for us where we can gather as Black men. Now, some of the challenges there, though, we gather as Black men and it becomes a safe haven for us. But there's also how we contribute to sexism and the perpetration of that, and what are the conversations in those spaces also become important. I also think about our boys, our Black boys, and this urgency, our society has this urgency on them being viewed as men, and how we contribute to that within our communities as well. I know I didn't do well with my oldest sons. My two oldest are, well, all of them are adults now, but my two oldest girls, then three boys, and then there's my baby girl, Jade. But with my two oldest sons, I didn't do well. I mean, I was an inner city kid. We grew up they grew up in the inner city, and I taught them a lot of rigid notions of manhood. And I didn't allow them to be boys. They had to be men quickly. And with my younger son, Kendall, I had the opportunity to pour into him differently, to let him be a big old goofy boy as long as he wanted to be, not to impose these notions of man, and that he can ask me for help, that he can always come to me, and he does, believe me, he does. And even there's sometimes friction between myself and his mother, because she gets a little concerned about the things he comes to me for instead of coming to her. And he has his mixed bag of who he goes to for what. Right. But the fact that he is wide open to coming to me anytime he needs help, I am okay with that. And I'm not in a rush for that to change. So that's another thing that resonates for me. And then the last thing is the trauma that Black men experience. The notion that hurt people, experiencing the trauma, the mental health challenges that also couple that, and the teaching of not asking for help, and the impact not only that's having on Black men, but the impact it's having on our communities. All men experience this, but when you couple it with a race construct, you can just see how it deepens in our experience as Black men.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Kwakupe, I think you want to say something.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that question really makes me think about when we think of social services or even social work training or intervention services, it's often void of conversations around history and really thinking about, as Mr. Porter just said, like that historical trauma or the impacts of intergenerational trauma. A lot of the, in my opinion, strict roles or gender norms that we see within our community came out of protective mechanisms or developed as a form of a protective mechanism. So Black men have had to become men earlier in life in many instances because of the things that were happening in our community in terms of kind of thinking about systemic policies that have negatively impacted our families. One thing that often comes to mind is when we think about families who were receiving welfare and housing support in the 1960s, thinking about the midnight raids that would occur. So child welfare workers or human services workers come into the house unannounced at any time. And if they saw remnants of a man in a woman's home, like her benefits could be taken away. And so in many instances, having families who were together and for whatever reason didn't necessarily have the ability to fully support that family financially, if you needed that resource, like imagine what it felt like to be a father or a partner in that situation, having to fully remove yourself or your likeness from that household in order to make sure that your family ate or that your family was housed, that your family was taken care of. And so when we think about how some of these roles play out, we should not forget the history that has led us to this place in those conversations.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you brought up the history as well, Dr. Kwakupe. And I think just the direction that the conversation is taking kind of forces us to remember how difficult, how challenging it could be to try to tease apart these intersecting identities of Black, male, and fatherhood.